Vanessa, I promised the Discord, I promised them we wouldn't talk too much Boston, but that doesn't mean we can't slander every other team in the process. I want to bring up the Philadelphia 76ers because they're a pretty interesting team where they're kind of always going to be fringe contenders or considered contenders just because of that roster. And I mean, the biggest question for me is I don't even know how they make the roster better because it's on paper, it's everything you want. It's everything you want around Joel Embiid. It's everything you want around James Harden. Both the superstars have the perfect players and play sets around them, yet it just doesn't seem like it's going to work in the playoffs again for me. Largely because Doc Rivers and his ability to get the worst out of teams in the most critical situations. And B, part of that as well is the personality, I think, of the players in that locker room. And then that obviously ties back to the coach as well, because we've heard Doc Rivers get referred to as a player's coach in the past, right? And, Paul Pierce spoke about it once, saying that, Doc is a player's coach. He listens to the players. He gives in to the players. That's not what you want if you're Philly. Like, Harden and Embiid need a guy that's going to be in their ear and telling them that this is not going to cut it. This is shit. And you need to pull your finger out. And they're not going to get that from Doc, I don't think, at any point. And the more I see Joel Embiid in these post-game interviews and this sort of moping and this feeling sorry for myself, and it's, I did everything I could and I'm unguardable, but, there's only so much I can do. That attitude just ain't going to cut it. And, again, the flaws, I think, in their game on the court, aside from attitude, is just comes down to the fact that they have these lapses in concentration. Like, they had Boston down 15 points at home in a game of great significance for them. Like, that game meant a lot to them, and they still couldn't get it done. Vanessa, what's your thoughts on the Sixers in terms of their ceiling this season? And what do they need to do to get better and lift that ceiling to a point of genuinely being an NBA Finals team?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything they could do to lift their ceiling to a finals team. I think you made a lot of great points. I think we're going to see what we see from Philly almost every year. High expectations. They're higher in the standings right now. Great record. They're third in the East. We're going to see a lot of expectations, and we're going to see them fall short of those expectations. They have one of, if not the best big man in the league. Unstoppable. Love watching them play, which is great, but you need more than that to make a deep run. I see a lot of problems with this Philly team. Absolutely no bench. I don't know. You got Maxey, a very young guy. He's explosive but very inconsistent off the bench. Guys like Montrezl Harrell. I mean, that's just not going to cut it for a deep playoff run. You have benches that are so much deeper, even just in the East, Boston included. You have benches that are so much deeper than Philly's bench. And you mentioned playoffs, and the playoffs where half court is more important, more teams are playing more in the half court. If you can game plan and stop the pick and roll game between Harden and Embiid, Embiid has once again shown his ability to make at an excellent level. So I'm not saying he can't, but if you can kind of neutralize the pick and roll, blitz him. If you have a great rim protector like Miami does, you can blitz him like Miami does. Get the ball out of his hands and make guys like Tobias Harris beat you. I'm okay with that. Every 100 out of 100 days, I'm okay with that. So just so many inconsistent guys. Are you going to lean on Tobias Harris to give you 17 a night? I can't. Are you going to rely on guys like DeAnthony Melton to give you 12 to 15 a night? I can't see that. So I just don't think that they can. Second round exit. I think so. Like I said, I think they have a lot of potential. A lot of guys, Harden is an elite player in this league, but just how the team runs. You mentioned Doc Rivers already. It's those small mistakes that get extremely magnified in the playoffs. So whether it's rotational mistakes, timing mistakes, those are magnified even more in the playoffs. So I don't see. I'm looking at the East. I don't see them beating Milwaukee. I think the Cavs are a really, really tough matchup for them. And the Cavs are below them in the standings. Miami is a really, really tough matchup for them. I think Toronto can be a tough matchup for them. So there's a lot of teams standing in their way and who are bad matchups in my opinion. So ceiling, I think second round. Floor, I think Doc gets bounced in the first round again. I mean, that's just what I feel. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting to watch for sure.
If they get bounced in the first or even the second round, do you think Harden leaves?
No, I don't think so. I think he enjoys playing with Embiid. I think he knows um, kind of what they can achieve there, right? With two
Hmm.
of the elite players in the league. I think he understands that. I mean, I'm not going to put anything past Harden. Don't ask me about Harden. I think Harden is soft as shit. So I don't put anything past him. What he'll do to maneuver out of a situation. But I think he stays. I think Doc goes for sure. I
Oh,
don't know.
God, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how many more chances you give that guy, but maybe a new coach, new energy in the locker room, maybe changes a lot of things. Like you said, the energy that Doc gives, kind of that players coach mentality. I think you hit it right on the head. I don't think that's what these guys need. I think maybe more like like a Ty Lue presence or something like that. I think would be good for these guys. Just an example, because Ty Lue is not going to go there, but
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see. I think Doc is definitely out. I think Harden stays and tries to make it work.
Yeah, yeah. I think that Doc's a dead man walking because I think unless they make the NBA Finals, he's gone. And for me, there's no route for them to get through the East. I cannot see them surviving 3 rounds in the East in any of the matchups that they're probably going to have to face and encounter. And like you said, it just comes down to predictability as well. They don't really seemingly have a plan B. Like you said, when they get these matchups with Miami, who do a great job of blitzing the ball out of Joel Embiid's hand, or even Boston, who do a great job, obviously, switch defense, and that's probably the best way to guard the pick and roll is if you can switch and have bodies that can sort of stay with each guy respectively. They don't seem to know how to figure those things out. And Doc's not someone who makes the adjustments in game or even game to game in the playoffs to be able to figure it out. I mean, Blake Griffin called him out when Boston beat them shorthanded, and they kept letting Blake take open threes, and they asked him after the game, were you surprised that they just let you keep shooting? And his answer was along the lines of no, because Doc doesn't make adjustments. So and that's a guy obviously who played under Doc at the Clippers and played at playoff runs with him. The league seemingly knows it as well. This is a team that's going to let you get what you want, and if you shut them down and figure them out, they're not going to be able to make the right moves necessary. So I don't think teams fear Philadelphia in the East, and I think that's probably as big of an issue as anything else about that team, because teams fear Boston, teams fear Milwaukee. You don't want to play them, and if you play them, you sure as hell want home court advantage where possible. I don't think teams fear Philadelphia, and I think that's probably something that we again see in the playoffs, like you said, where even in the first round, depending on who they get, they're going to be given a real fight. And I think that there's very much potential for them to be upset in the first round.
Yeah, like looking at the standings, I mean, they have a possibility to pull Cleveland in the first round.
Yeah.
That's a nightmare first round
Yeah.
matchup. With everybody healthy, everything, you might get home court, but like you said, I don't think that matters a ton. You might pull Miami in the first round, the way the
Yep.
standings look now. So I mean, a lot of movement can happen. Seeds 4 through 7 are still pretty close. But you pull a matchup like that in the first round, even if you win, it might go 6 or 7 games. It's especially with Cleveland, it's gonna be a really tough physical series. So good luck. Good luck.
Yeah. So I'm in agreement, man. I think that the ceiling for Philly is a second round exit in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. I just don't see them being able to make a conference final, and I absolutely don't see them making an NBA final. So I did see a lot of people in the timeline sort of listing their prices as potential value to come out the East, and I couldn't talk you off it anymore. I think that's probably one of the worst bets you could make from the Eastern Conference futures. I think it's a 2-horse race. It's Boston, it's Milwaukee, and that's it. So that for me is where we're at with Philadelphia. If you had to, real quick, we'll just deviate quickly. But if you had to pick someone out in the West, finesse, real quick, who do you think's coming out of that Western Conference?
Ooh, that one is obviously a lot tougher. I don't know. Obviously, Denver looks amazing right now. We haven't seen them maximize their potential yet, so it can be tough to kind of visualize that. I mean, they're pretty dominant right now, though, especially at home, but they're doing their thing on the road as well. Sacramento doesn't play any defense, so it's nice watching the historic offense that they're putting up, but they played no fucking defense. So that's going to be a problem. Phoenix is the X factor, right? I don't see a world in which KD doesn't work. So, I mean, if you're making me choose right now, God, it's so tough. If you're making me choose right now, I feel obligated to go Phoenix. I think they match it. If they get Sacramento in the first round or something like that, the way it lines
Yeah.
up right now, I think that's an easy first round. I think they can. I think they can slay Memphis. They're obviously not going to have home court against Denver, which is going to be tough. Yeah, I'd say Phoenix. I mean, I can't. We haven't seen anything, with the roster constructed the way it is now, but they got a bunch of dogs. They got guys coming off the bench who play defense, can shoot the three, which is more important in the playoffs. Yeah, I'm gonna go Phoenix. I'm gonna go Phoenix.
I think it's interesting people talking about Phoenix's depth and the lack of depth that they have. I don't mind their bench. I don't think it's terrible. I think it's more than good enough considering the upside that their starting lineup has.
Yeah,
And that's all you need. With the playoffs are 8-man rotations and your starters are going to be playing 38, 40 minutes. So, you just need spot minutes from the bench. And I think you'll get that from the guys that they have on that roster for sure. I think I agree. If I had to pick someone, you probably have to go Phoenix. I think the West is just going to be one of those things where it's going to be entirely matchup dependent. Like one team could come out of the West if they get all the right matchups, and they could also be out in the first round if they get a matchup that's terrible for them. I think the Clippers are a perfect example of that. If the Clippers get Denver first round, Denver owns that team. Denver wins probably in 6 games. But if the Clippers get any other run, they could easily come out of that Western Conference because of how they match up with teams like Memphis and Sacramento, like you said. I think they're probably the worst matchup for the Suns because of Kawhi and PG being able to throw those bodies at KD and Booker specifically. The West is just crazy. I'm not confident in picking anyone until we see what the 1 through 8 seedings are and what the path to the finals is for all of those guys. So
we can't forget. I mean, Golden State right now is in the play-in. Obviously, they've had major health issues this year, but say they sneak across that line and make it, as a 6 seed, a 5 seed. They're still obviously dangerous with the pedigree. We saw what New Orleans did. I mean, they're 10th right now in the West. So we saw what they did last year. I think there's definitely going to be some surprises. I think, like you said, matchup dependent. I think Sacramento can beat some teams just purely on offense alone. That team is so exciting to watch. So I think they can make some noise for sure. I think we're going to see 1 or 2 surprises in the West, and I 100% agree. Matchup dependent. We'll see how kind of the seeding falls, and then kind of be able to make more accurate predictions for sure.
Yeah. The play-in's going to be wild in the West as well. We're probably going to get the Warriors, Lakers, Pelicans. I reckon all 3 of those teams are going to be involved in the play-in in some way, shape, or form. And if Zion's back, and then of course if the Warriors are fully healthy, that play-in is going to be stacked in its own right. So the West is going to be crazy from here on out. It's going to be super exciting. But I think we wait until the seedings are done before we start making any concrete projections there. In the East, do we say it, Finesse? Do we just say the East runs through Boston?
Yeah, I mean, it's really simple. That one's way simpler. Short conversation, way simpler. We'll spend our time talking about the West.